I was gonna rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lennox is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
It's time!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight Podcast. Coming to you from the Coastal Cameron Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Are you ready?
Here's your host, the Big Fellah, Albert Cameron.
Let's get it on!
Thank you for joining us for the Prizefight Podcast, only at CageNationTV.com. I'm your host, the Big Fellah, Mr. Albert Cameron, and we got some stuff to talk about this week. Floyd Mayweather Jr. made an official offer to fight Conor McGregor by Dana White. We're going to talk about how this compares with this time last year and how some things have changed. And we're going to talk about another complete 180. Soulja Boy versus Chris Brown has officially become a joke in this guy's opinion. I'm going to tell you guys absolutely why. Before we get into all that, we're going to listen to some important messages. Don't go nowhere. It's the Prizefight Podcast. Cage Nation TV is looking for bloggers and news contributors to help expand our reach into new markets. We're looking for writers to cover boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, traditional martial arts, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and mixed martial arts. If you're interested in this completely volunteer, unpaid opportunity, visit www.cagenationtv.com/opportunities or email a writing sample to cagenationtv@gmail.com. We're looking for folks with genuine enthusiasm for the combat sports who enjoy sharing their opinion.
This week in MMA history.
This week in MMA history, January 15th through January 21st, January 17th, 2016, UFC Fight Night, Dillashaw vs. Cruz. Ultimate Fighter runner-up TJ Dillashaw lost the UFC Bantamweight Championship to Dominic the Dominator Cruz. Cruz would go on to lose the Bantamweight Championship to Cody No Love Garbrandt, who has had words for the former Team Alpha male trainee, TJ Dillashaw, bringing it to be a title triangle. January 18th, 2015, UFC Fight Night, McGregor vs. Seaver. Notorious Conor McGregor defeats Dennis Seaver by TKO. The victory over Seaver secured McGregor a title shot against Jose Aldo Jr. and ultimately the featherweight championship. The rest is clearly history. January 17th, 2013, Bellator MMA. Bellator Season 8 makes its Spike TV debut. Bellator would become Spike TV's new MMA promotion after the UFC left for a deal with Fox. January 20th, 2012, UFC on FX, Gillard vs. Miller. The UFC premieres its first event on the FX network, a part of a 7-year agreement between Fox and the Ultimate Fighting Championship. January 16, 2006, Ultimate Fight Night 3. Tim the Maniac Silva defeats former King of Pancrase Asuero Silva to earn a title shot against Andre the Pitbull Arlovsky. Silva would defeat Arlovsky twice in succession, effectively ending Arlovsky's reign as heavyweight champion. Cage Nation TV would like to take a second and formally thank all of the businesses that have taken the time to sponsor a mixed martial artist or a boxer as they have trained to attain greatness. In the world of business, it can be looked at as an advertising expense to get your name out there. But did you know that your sponsorship dollars is actually keeping the American dream alive? Your help and support is actually changing the lives of aspiring athletes. Working hard and reaching for the brass ring is truly the great American story. We encourage all of our listeners and followers to support businesses that sponsor your favorite fighters. And thank you to those businesses for your continued support and encouragement. Welcome back to the Prizefight Podcast, only here at CageNationTV.com. I'm your host, the Big Fellah, Mr. Albert Cameron, and today we're talking about Floyd Mayweather Jr. The offer has been made. Dana White came to the table on the herd with Colin Cowherd and said, we'll do $25 million. Conor McGregor will get $25 million. Floyd Mayweather Jr. will get $25 million, and we'll talk about pay-per-view number percentages. We'll talk about everyone getting a cut. So if we just talk about the base guarantee, we're talking about $25 million for, at the most, 36 minutes of actual work. That's based on 12 rounds at 3 minutes. That's 36 minutes of actually getting hit in the face. And of course, Conor McGregor has gotten a license to box in California, so, I don't know if it'll go a whole 12 rounds or whatever the case may be. With him not having a boxing match yet, California or Nevada might say, we're not going to do 12 rounds. But if they do, 12 rounds, 36 minutes of actual action, $25 million. I'm not gonna lie, friends. There ain't a whole lot that I wouldn't do for $25 million. If someone said, hey, Mr. Albert Cameron, would you go across the street and punch your neighbor in the face for $25 million, I'd hit the dude twice. And he's a nice guy, I like the guy. But for $25 million, I'd probably have to hit him in the mouth. I'd probably pay for his dentist bills, but for $25 million, I would definitely hit the dude in the mouth. Not a whole lot of questions asked. And I wouldn't even have to do it on pay-per-view. I would not have to do it on pay-per-view. I'd just go over it and hit him, and I was like, hey, man, I'm really sorry, but, $25 million. And I'm sure he'd understand. So the offer was made, $25 million, pay-per-view numbers. And we talk about pay-per-view numbers. I have seen UFC contract disputes completely go south over pay-per-view draws and shares. When we talk about Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. on pay-per-view, we talked last week about, not last week, but in the Friday 5 this couple weeks ago, about 5 mistakes that a promotion can make, one of them being relying on pay-per-view draws. The Gracie Fighting Championship was actually a thing, and they relied on pay-per-view to get you to notice. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of big-name fighters on there. Some decent guys who've done some things, but nothing that's going to make you go, wow, where's my wallet? I need to buy this now. Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Conor McGregor is one of those fights where I'm like, wow, where is my wallet? I need to buy this right now. We're talking about potentially one of the largest pay-per-views in combat sports history. Okay? Without a doubt. You have the worlds of MMA and boxing coming together for the first time, really. And I know you're going to talk about James Toney versus Randy Couture. Okay, yeah, that was okay, but I think we all know how that fight was going to end. It was no secret. Randy Couture wasn't going to stand there and trade with James Toney. And I mean, it wasn't even like a main event, Like, James Toney has done some great things. I mean, James Toney, I believe, defeated Evander Holyfield for a heavyweight title. Okay, that is nothing to sneeze at. Evander, the real deal Holyfield, probably one of the best of all time. In my opinion, Evander Holyfield's right up there with Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko. Like, those are names that certainly belong in the same conversation. Maybe not in the same, top 3 echelon as Ali or Tyson, but up there. Certainly up there. Evander Holyfield beat Mike Tyson decisively. And Tyson had to resort to some panic tactics, and I think you know that I'm talking about his ear getting bitten. James Toney beat Evander Holyfield by proxy. And I'm sure boxing math doesn't work the way MMA math works either. It essentially doesn't work. But James Toney and Randy Couture happened the way we all knew it was going to happen. Couture was going to take him down, was going to take away all of his weapons, which of course would be his striking. But if Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather were to come together, well now both guys have some deadly weapons at their hands. Conor McGregor isn't going to rely on a takedown, but does Conor McGregor ever really need to rely on a takedown? Conor McGregor has knockout power. When James Toney stepped in against Randy Couture, we knew he wasn't going to be a wrestler. The UFC, in fact, put one of their best wrestlers they had on payroll against James Toney because they knew that James Toney wasn't going to be able to get a ground game in time to be a threat to anyone in the UFC. So they put one of their best wrestlers up against a boxer who had no ground experience. That, my friends, is equating to, yeah, Steve across the street is really good at bow and arrow, but I've got a Magnum 357. That is essentially what it equates to. Conor McGregor, in his combat sport experience, does have hands. Does he have technically good boxing? Well, no, it's nothing really to write home about. Conor McGregor's boxing, is effective for the mixed martial arts platform. Is it going to win him a seat at the table of Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Evander Holyfield, the Klitschko brothers? Probably not. But he's not completely outclassed like James Toney was. Conor McGregor can at least put his hands up and would be able to defend himself. And that is what makes Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Conor McGregor more of a pay-per-view destination than what James Toney versus Randy Couture was. Floyd Mayweather Jr., arguably one of the best boxers of all time. When I think about Floyd Mayweather Jr., I certainly put him up there with Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, names like that. I equate them. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is never going to be known as a high-profile knockout artist, but what he will be known as is a winner and a moneymaker. So even if he's a few years outside of his prime, that about balances the scales with Conor McGregor doesn't have world-class boxing, but Floyd Mayweather maybe not in the killer shape that he once was. Now, There was a recent video of Mike Tyson hitting a heavy bag, and people are like, wow, Tyson's still got lethal punching power. Muscle memory never really quits on you. That skill is never going to go away. So even though Floyd Mayweather is not in a regular training schedule, I have to believe, I have faith that Floyd Mayweather Jr. is going to be able to get into a shape rather quickly to fight a McGregor. McGregor's on top of the world right now, but he doesn't have the world-class boxing. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has the world-class boxing, but he hasn't been in competition for a little bit. And we're talking outside of competition, not even 2 years. Not even 2 years since Mayweather vacated and retired. Okay, so we're not talking about like Rocky Balboa versus, Antonio Carver here. We are talking about Conor McGregor being on top. He's featherweight champion, had to vacate he's lightweight champion, had to vacate the featherweight championship. We have Floyd Mayweather Jr., who's just outside of competition, not even by 2 years, still could very well be in his prime shape. Now, we all saw the video on TMZ or SureDog. I'm going to say I saw it on SureDog because I hate to admit that I've been following TMZ. And as a sidebar, who would have ever thought that you'd turn to TMZ to get your combat sports news on what's happening? That absolutely blows my mind. But if you've been following it, you saw the reporter from TMZ saying, hey, Floyd, Dana White came to you with an offer, and what do you think? And Mayweather called him a comedian. Now, I watched this video, and the headline says, Mayweather declines Dana White's offer. I did not see that. I saw Floyd Mayweather dance around the subject. What I saw was the TMZ reporter saying, hey, Floyd, what do you think about this $25 million offer? And Floyd Mayweather called him a comedian. The guy across the street could come to me and say, hey, you want to hit me in the face for $25 million? I'd be like, man, you must be a comedian. You must be joking. At no point did Mayweather say no. Mayweather said he's a comedian, but then insisted that the reporter look at his watch. Yeah, I get it. It's a nice watch. Good for you. I mean, you're into timepieces. I used to watch Dragon Ball Z a lot. That's, random facts. Yes, you bought a watch. But at no point in that video did Mayweather ever say no. He danced around the subject a lot. Oh boy, he did more dancing than a ballerina troupe around that subject. But he never really said no. So what do we know, fight fans? Because we've seen it before. What do we know whenever a fighter says, he's a comedian, but he never really says no? That means he's giving it serious contemplative thought. $25 million is $25 million. Okay, that's nothing to sneeze at. Considering that Amanda Nunes hardly cleared $100,000 for beating Ronda Rousey. Would Amanda Nunes step into a boxing ring with Conor McGregor and punch him in the face? She would not think twice, and I have to think she'd do it for a lot less than $25 million. I hope someday I am in the position, you know what, not only me, but I hope we are all who are listening to the Prizefight podcast right now, I hope someday we are in the position where someone comes at us with $25 million and we're like, I'll think about it. I hope we're all in that spot someday. But the way I see it, from what I saw for my own self, in my own eyes, I saw Floyd Mayweather not saying no. That's what I saw. He did not say no. I think he is still considering it, and I think the whole watch thing was weird and maybe a little bit of a distraction. About a year ago, I launched the Prizefight podcast from my house in Pine Grove Mills, Pennsylvania. I launched the Prizefight podcast, and one of the first couple episodes that we talked about was Conor McGregor. We launched the Prizefight podcast on Conor McGregor, and it's kind of ironic that we're back to that a year later. But a year ago, Conor McGregor had said, I'm retiring, thanks for the cheese, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. And this put me on a tangent about the Conor McGregor hissy fit tactic, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. But this time last year, Conor McGregor said he's retiring, he's working out in a boxing ring, he's got boxing gloves, the UFC is not giving it the attention that McGregor was hoping for, not really telling him to go to hell, but kind of telling him to go to hell, kind of someone's, trying to be in your bonnet and you're being kind of indifferent. That's really what happened. Because everybody knew. I'd postulated that is boxing different enough that Conor McGregor could have retired from the UFC and been a professional boxer? And the answer is no. The UFC has non-compete clauses and enough things in their contracts to where Conor McGregor would have been sued so bad that he would have had to have the fillings in his teeth removed in the courtroom after that was over. Well, now Now we got Dana White ponying up $50 million is just a guarantee. Okay, that sounds like show purse. $25 million isn't a show purse. And again, it's because it's a pay-per-view destination. If Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor sign on the dotted line, am I going to buy the pay-per-view? Absolutely. I would probably sell a kidney to see that fight. Not because I think it's going to be a great fight, but just because there are questions to be answered. Questions that have not been answered whenever James Toney fought Randy Couture, whenever Art Jimerson stepped in the cage for the first time against Hoist Gracie. This might be our first opportunity to either say boxers need to really respect the hands of MMA fighters, or MMA fighters need to show a little bit more gravitas towards what boxers do and what boxers specialize at. We are talking multi-millions of dollars. That is easily $100, maybe 110 pay-per-views. Pay-per-view purchase. That's what the price tag is going to be. You call Comcast or your cable company and you say, I want to see Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. They're going to be like, okay, that's $100 or that's $110. And you know what? We will pay it. We will absolutely pay it. So you take me times, I don't know, a couple hundred people, couple 100 million people, I'm sorry. And we are talking about a number that is so astronomical that the $25 million that Dana White's ponying up to get Mayweather to fight McGregor, we're talking about, okay, that's okay. And I'm guaranteeing that there's going to be a win purse too, somewhere in the neighborhood. So someone's walking away with a lot of money. Win or lose, someone's walking away with a lot of money. So a year ago, we had the UFC being indifferent to Conor McGregor's boxing ploys, and now we have the UFC supporting it, and UFC by proxy with Dana White. Now, what is the difference between a year ago and today? 6 letters, ladies and gentlemen, WMGIMG. Zuffa may not have wanted to back the fight, but the UFC is under new ownership now, and I think they're seeing dollar signs. Wouldn't you? There is so much logistically that needs to be discussed about if this fight goes down. Who's going to book it? Who's going to be promoting? Is the UFC going to co-promote with Floyd Mayweather? Who's going to get the cut of what? But I'm telling you, based on just the estimated numbers alone, it's a conversation that would benefit everyone from having that conversation. Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. has so much going for it. For boxing fans, it's Floyd Mayweather's opportunity to finally shut the MMA guys up. For the MMA guys, it's our opportunity to finally take the respect that we've been fighting for. It would be a Floyd Mayweather return fight. Conor McGregor would just be conquering another challenge. Like, there is so much going on if this were to come together that I really think that it would benefit a lot of people from happening. So you heard it from me first. Mayweather never really declined. He called Dana White a comedian, and Dana White admitted that $25 million is not peanuts, and I gotta tell you, high five, Uncle Dana, because I agree with you. Just because Floyd Mayweather Jr. called Dana White a comedian does not mean that fight is off. Well, speaking of Floyd Mayweather, we're going to close out the Prizefight podcast talking about a fight that Floyd Mayweather is promoting, and that's Soulja Boy versus Chris Brown. And I was really excited last week. I'm like, oh man, we're going to follow this fight. We're going to see it through. I'm going to bring you action news as it's happening. And now I'm telling you that this is probably the last I'm going to talk about it. Let's talk about realistically what the fight would have looked like if everything had stayed the same from last week. Chris Brown and Soulja Boy are rappers. I don't follow their music. I can't tell you if they're good rappers or not, but they are popular rappers. Is Chris Brown a rapper or is he a pop singer? They're performers. They are musicians. I can't tell you if they're good musicians or performers or not, but I can tell you that they're popular. They are Instagram famous. As performers and musicians, they have never competed athletically, especially in the sport of boxing. So, if they're going to fight, that's great, but it's going to be an amateur fight. And in the United States, amateur fights means headgear, bigger gloves, a required uniform. And there's no way that fight was ever going to be a main event. Let's be honest. And then we're going to have two guys who are not experts in boxing by any stretch. And there's nothing wrong with that. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and they were going to start that journey. You can't expect them to have 3 months worth of training and be really good boxers. It doesn't work that way. So, this is cute. As of this past week, the fight has been moved to Dubai in the Middle East. And this reason is really funny. It really tickles my ribs here. The fight has been moved to Dubai to avoid drug tests that both fighters know they were not going to pass. You remember how last week I talked about how as soon as you lace up the gloves and step into the ring, you earn my respect, and the only way you lose that respect is to do something that disrespects the sport and yourself as a fighter? I think we're there. Last week, the fight was going to be an amateur showcase, and I'm like, you know what, that's great. Y'all got to start somewhere. But now, we're having the fight move to Dubai because there's a drug test that both guys know they're not going to pass. Well, okay. See, where I'm at and where I've been, there is a lot of what good old boy kind of pulling the strings. If you got friends in high places who can kind of overlook things, okay. Yeah, so this is a good old boy stunt, in my opinion. They knew they weren't going to pass drug tests. Okay, well, now we need to ask ourselves, what kind of drugs are they ingesting that they're not going to pass? I mean, if it's, THC, something harder than that, well, yeah, you probably should have planned that in advance. I mean, if your promoter says, hey, we're going to bring a fight together, one of the first things you should probably tell them is, hey, I've been imbibing in some stuff that's going to show up negatively on a drug test. And then you plan accordingly. So maybe you don't hold the fight in 3 months. Maybe you hold the fight in 6 months, maybe a year. I see from a promotion standpoint, you announce a fight, you don't want to lose steam, especially on a couple guys who have not been tested in an actual boxing match. But to move the fight to Dubai because you're going to pass a drug test, right there, that says that the playing field is not going to be fair because part of those drug tests could be steroids, PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs. So, I mean, what is this? Win or lose, what happens? I mean, is either guy going to get a shot at the title for winning? No. They just beat the snot out of their bully, is essentially what it comes to. And the fact that they're going to Dubai to avoid drug tests that they know that neither of them are going to pass, well, what's the point? Win or lose, I can't say that either man who wins is decisively a victor because he could be absolutely juiced to the gills. Nick Diaz defeated Takanori Gomi, and he was high on pot. Okay, Nick Diaz had imbibed marijuana so recently that his fight with Takanori Gomi, a victory, was overturned to a no contest. Nick Diaz defeated Takanori Gomi by Gogo Plata while he was high. So win or lose, whoever wins between Soulja Boy and Chris Brown, I mean, it really doesn't mean that much because we know that the venue was changed to avoid a drug test. Now this fight has nothing, even entertainment value in it for me, so congratulations, guys. You get 2 weeks of Prizefight podcast out of me, but you will get no more. Coming up next week on the Prizefight podcast, well, we don't know, but we do have some fun and exciting things coming up. In Raleigh, North Carolina, we will be on site for the Next Level Fight Club. There is a title fight. We're going to talk about that a lot. We're going to be talking about the Next Level Fight Club coming up. We want to make sure that we let you know what's going on in Raleigh, North Carolina. Cage Nation TV South will be there, providing you pre-fight, wrap-up, all the fun stuff we do. In April, the Azalea Festival, of course, going down in Wilmington, North Carolina. There is going to be an Azalea Festival boxing tournament put together by Port City Boxing here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And then Battle in the South has a card in April that we're going to be bringing you news, notes, results, pre-fight, all that fun stuff. Until next week, everybody, fights, Cameron, action.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prize Fight Podcast. All rights reserved 2016 to 2017 Planet Aries Sports. The Prize Fight Podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.